Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Scoliosis Dialogues. I'm your host, Jason Brooks, and I'm a pediatric orthopedic surgeon at the Scottish Rite Hospital for Children in Dallas, Texas. March is Women's History Month, and to celebrate this, the SRS is highlighting the amazing careers of female spine surgeons within our society. The first episode in this special series is dedicated to Dr. Lorena V, who was an absolute trailblazer in the field of pediatric spine deformity. Dr. Karol attended the University of Michigan for medical school, graduating in 1985. She then went on to Detroit Medical Center for her orthopedic surgery residency training, where she finished in 1990. She then pursued a pediatric orthopedic surgery fellowship at the Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children here in Dallas. She was quickly identified as a future leader and returned to join their faculty as their first female spine surgeon. She went on to train countless pediatric orthopedic surgeons over her career and was later recruited to be the chief of pediatric orthopedics at the Children's Hospital of Colorado. We wanted so badly to have Dr. Karol herself on this podcast, but unfortunately she recently passed away. Dr. Karol has left quite a legacy, not just through her loving husband and children, but also through her patients, colleagues in the SRS, and the numerous surgeons she has trained. We were fortunate enough to bring together some of her colleagues and past fellows to discuss who Dr. Karol truly was as a friend, mentor, surgeon, scientist, spouse, and mom. I have some special folks here on this podcast who are going to first introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the episode.
Sure. I'm Jim Sanders. I'm a pediatric orthopedist at the University of North Carolina.
Jay Shapiro, pediatric orthopedist, Austin, Texas, current historian of the SRS.
Noelle Larson, pediatric orthopedist at Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota.
Mark Erickson, pediatric orthopedic surgeon, University of Colorado, Denver, Colorado.
Lorena Floccari, pediatric orthopedic surgeon at Akron Children's Hospital.
Amy McIntosh, pediatric orthopedic surgeon in Dallas at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital.
Just to start it off, a number of you were fellows underneath Dr. Karol's tutelage. What was it like to be a fellow under Dr. Karol? Lorena, maybe you could start us out.
Yeah, Dr. Karol was amazing to work with. It was just to sit back at our Monday night conferences and listen to her breadth of knowledge and just ability to integrate the clinical situation, the x-rays, and come up with a plan that she just was brilliant. One of my favorite parts of working with Dr. Karol, I would be in clinic with her and we would go through the full day. And at the end, she would sit down for at least half an hour and pull all of the patients that I didn't get to see with her, that maybe she saw by herself or with just a different provider. And she would just talk me through their entire story. So she would take me back to when she first started seeing them, take me through the whole treatment, teach along the way, ask me questions. And it was something that really stuck with me. And now I still try to do that with all of my residents at the end of the day. So that was a really special memory that I have from Scottish Rite, from working with Dr. Karol. And I know she did that with everybody at every single clinic.
So how about you, Amy? What was your kind of favorite memory of being a fellow underneath Dr. Karol? And if you can kind of mention, I know that the preoperative conferences at Scottish Rite are pretty epic with regards to folks kind of going on some of their long diatribes. Did Dr. Karol have a specific one that she liked to go on?
I would say Dr. Karol does not have a catchphrase, but I think Lorena captured it perfectly. She just has what I call amazing sort of podium presence or presence at a conference, and she can speak so eloquently and get her point across just so brilliantly, and she does so just looking like beautiful and perfect. And so my big takeaway was always, if I'm going to be in the spotlight speaking or at the podium, I want to do it like Lorena Karol, because to me, she's the best in the business at that. So basically, I'm constantly trying to do that anywhere where I'm speaking in public. I don't think I'm quite at her level yet, but I think it's a pretty good person to try to emulate.
I'd add maybe 2 points to that. Lorena Karol is someone who synthesizes data, and she also synthesizes people. So she brings different people together. She promotes the younger people. She provides insight into challenging situations as far as leadership, both at a local level and at a national level for SRS and POSNA. She's very analytical, and I admire that about her. And then she's also very caring. So she tries to promote the next generation and provides younger people with accesses to resources or connections or ideas that are going to really help them take their career to the next level. So I really attribute a lot of my success to Lori Carol, and I think a lot of my colleagues do, in that she just selflessly promotes the people who are up and coming, and helps us become the next generation of workers and leaders for our national societies.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think I'm the oldest of the people that worked under her, if you want to call her that is actually younger than her still by a small margin. But so Lori, I would say I never speak as eloquently as Noelle, that's for sure. But I would say one thing I would use is she sort of eliminates hierarchical situations. And so I never felt like I was, the catchphrase for this section is, what was it like to be a fellow under her? Well, I never felt like I was ever under her. I always felt like I was with her, alongside her. She was pushing from behind sometimes, pulling from the front sometimes, pushing sideways, whatever it is, to do that. And I had the unique luxury, if you will. She was my last rotation as a fellow, and everybody remembers that. That time in your fellowship where you're like, oh my God, they're going to expect me to actually take care of some kids here eventually on my own. And that mentor that you have at that time is super critical. I can't imagine a better opportunity. And I'd say the best way to acknowledge that is so many of those traits I try to do myself. How do you bring someone in as a fellow and make them feel like they are in charge of that situation, but yet give them enough guidance? And that carried through still to today. And so I would say that's a big tribute to her as an individual. Your term, she synthesizes people. Emotional intelligence is an overused term. I would say that I like synthesizing people better. She's remarkable. It's an intangible trait that you can't teach. She just has it in droves.
That's excellent. And I know, Jim Sanders, you might be, if I'm looking at our panel here, the only person that wasn't a fellow here at Scottish Rite. How did your relationship with Lori Carol start, and how has it developed over both of your careers?
Well, actually, Jaysson, I was a fellow at the Scottish Rite.
Sorry about that.
No. So the story is that Lori was a fellow a year ahead of me. Jay was a year ahead of her. So Lori and I did not work together, but I would say that with Jay and Jay's wife Shannon and my wife Tricia, we've become very good friends over the years with Bob and Lori. And so we've known Lori, and Jay will speak to it too. We've known Lori away from the work context. And as a mom with three lovely daughters, that's Leah and Molly and Abby, and Bob, who's been just an incredibly supportive husband. And we've just found a good friend with Lori. She's a very deep person. She's incredibly caring about those around her. And so, yes, you think of Lori Carol and all the work she's done with early onset scoliosis, the fantastic work that she's done with bracing, all of the things she's done for the SRS in terms of education, and what she did for POSNA as well, as the first woman president of POSNA. But Lori's just a good human being who's deeply compassionate, always trying to figure out the right way to do things. And she and her husband, Bob, have been a wonderful team over the years, raising their daughters, helping Lori to be able to support in the active life that she's lived, and Bob helping so many things at home. It's just been a wonderful, close relationship in that regard.
That's excellent. So that's a great segue. We are the Scoliosis Research Society, and research is a big part about what we do. But I would love for each of you all to kind of talk about, Lori Carol was set to be the first female president of the SRS. She already was the first female president of POSNA. But from a research standpoint, from a spine deformity standpoint, what is Lori Carol's impact to the specialty or field of spine deformity? What did she discover? What did she present that has changed the lives of kids with scoliosis throughout the world?
Well, maybe I'll take it from there, Jaysson, and just kind of get the ball rolling for everybody. Having known Lori since she was a fellow, a couple of years behind, a year behind me, and in between Jim and I, it's interesting. In my career, I've seen a lot of changes in scoliosis surgery, and here comes the old man talking. But when I first started, people were still using Harrington rods. And interestingly enough, Lori has probably made the most important contribution in my career and changed the way that I actually practice. For years and years, we never really understood whether bracing worked or not. There was kind of the old school when I came in that you braced everybody in the Milwaukee brace, and of course it worked. And we were bracing all kinds of kids who didn't need to be braced. And then we kind of figured out, well, maybe it's not as successful as we thought. And literally for a large part of my career, and probably Jim's and several other people's career, we really had doubts whether the brace was effective or not, or how effective it was. And Lori changed all that. Her thoughtfulness and the way that she presented her brace studies and the way the compliance studies came about. I went from having discussions with families about it's kind of their choice what they want to do, to where I was really trying to influence them to wear the brace because we know it works if they wear it. And Lori is the reason that all of us have that information. For her to do the kind of things she's done over her career and yet still maintain a wonderful family life. And I have to chime in a little bit here that you don't have to be a female orthopedic surgeon to appreciate somebody who really has a well-rounded life and has taken care of all aspects of her life. And I've been fortunate enough to have Lori as a very close friend, and we've had long discussions about family and how to raise your children and how to do things. And it's one of those things that I value her opinion and her input as much as I do anybody. She's a stellar person, and I miss seeing her as much as we used to.
So just from looking at Lori Karol's different publications on PubMed, you can tell that she was a prolific researcher. To Noelle and Amy, both of you all have established yourselves as very active in the SRS so far, and kind of along the same line as Lori Karol. How has she influenced your research focus in spine deformity so far? How does she mentor that along so that we can continue to innovate and change the field of scoliosis in children, or just deformity in general?
I guess I'd say Dr. Karol is one of the toughest individuals I've ever met, and she always universally promotes a positive attitude and a positive spin and a positive outlook. So I think anyone doing research is faced with challenges and disappointment, and Lori Karol stands right back up again and puts a smile on her face and just keeps on going. So I have taken a lot of inspiration from Lori and her attitude and her persistence and her dedication. And at the end of the day, we want to make care better for children. And I believe that's what motivates Lori and her research efforts. We want to make spinal deformity care better. So I think at the end of the day, it's not about ego, it's not about podium papers, it's about changing care. And I've tried to take that as my mantra for research as well, that we want to have new treatments for spinal deformity.
Yeah, I would echo what Noelle is saying. And Lori also had an uncanny ability to kind of, like Noelle said, look at problems differently. I mean, she was also the director of the Gait Lab here. I know you're talking about spine deformity, but a lot of people were publishing on, cerebral palsy, and Lori's thought was like, I'm going to publish on clubfoot and hip dysplasia and how that affects gait. And then she kind of did the same thing with scoliosis bracing. Like Jay said, she started looking at the failures and like teasing out what are the things that made them differently, and then also consequently looked at the ones that succeeded. And that's how she managed to synthesize the data and figure out it's really about dose of brace wear based on your maturity. And I think that was a very novel kind of idea or concept for all of us, but now it makes, complete sense. And like Noelle said, it was all to benefit patients and help them the best that she could. And honestly, I quote her data, or her, basically, I hear her in my head, which might be weird, literally like every day in clinic, I quote her, when I'm counseling my patients. about their different, treatments, especially the scoliosis brace and the compliance monitoring. So basically, I feel like she's with me all the time.
Jay, as our SRS historian, you've kind of looked through the lineage of SRS presidents. I would love if you could speak to what did Lori Karol have to do? What were some of because there are a lot of people that may want to one day be in the presidential line of the SRS, but what did you see that Lori Karol needed to do or needed to accomplish in order to get into the presidential line and kind of progress through the society like she did?
Yeah, Jaysson, I think that's a great question. And, it speaks to Lori's abilities. And as people have said before, Lori is not only a brilliant orthopedist and scientist, but she really understands how to interact with people, from actually having seen several of her patients and concert with her later in my career and how much they really love her, to the fact that she could walk into a room and kind of immediately after getting a gauge of the situation, really understand the room and everybody in it. In all honesty, the presidential line is obviously stellar orthopedic and spine surgeons, but it's not just that. You also have to have the organizational skills and really the work effort. And so, it's a combination of a lot of things. And Lori was always a very, very hard worker from the time that she was at UC Davis in California to, when she got back to Scottish Rite. And she had a way of not only working hard, but also organizing things. And in the year that she was president of POSNA, I was fortunate enough to be the historian, and her meetings were the best meetings that I had and sat through. She was incredibly organized. And it was one of those things that people realize that. And Lori, I always used to joke with her that she's kind of become to be the first of anything, you have to be really, really good, and you have to have a certain temperament. And Lori was not only really, really good, but she was always calm and under control. I never saw her lose her cool. I never saw that in any kind of public setting. She never lost her cool, never really raised her voice to anybody. It was the consummate leader. There's no doubt, no reason in my mind that there was anybody else that should have been the first for both societies.
That's very telling. It's not just about doing the research, but you have to have those people skills, also those organizational skills. That is a great, summary overall. And, I know we had kind of hinted on it, but work-life balance is always something I love to sit at people's feet and just learn better, because I always feel like I'm maybe getting close to it and then I fail and then get close again. We've all, at least I've heard hints that Lori Karol was a master at this, but, just my wife's a physician, and I realize there is a double standard. When we both come home, the kids are expecting different things from us. And we all know how challenging it is to be a spine deformity surgeon. What did you all see that Lori Karol did in order to balance being a high-level researcher, a high-level spine deformity surgeon, and a high-level mom and a high-level wife? What were the tips and tricks that you guys saw that she kind of did in order to make it work?
I would chime in really briefly that I think Lori would give an awful lot of the credit to Bob. Just the fact that they had such a wonderful, strong relationship. Bob was the stay-at-home person who was always there to take care of the things. And Lori's like all of us. Lori will tell you that there are times that she struggled with this work-life balance too, and many of the things that she would have to do with her career to make sure that her daughters were well cared for as well. So it's even though we may hold Lori up on a high pedestal, Lori would not want to be on that pedestal. She'd want to tell you it's work, and you have to make conscious efforts and conscious decisions to make sure that your family's part of things.
Yeah, I would dovetail on that. I'd say I've had very fortunate in my life to be really good friends with several great CEOs of organizations. And I think things that Lori possesses and those folks do as well as, and I think I heard Noelle Larson say this at IPOS, and if I'm wrong, Laura, Noelle, you correct me, but the concept of being one person. And Lori always told me about that. And I at times would say, what do you mean by that? She goes, well, I don't change who I am based on what room I'm in or who I'm with. It's the same. And the struggles are the same, right? And so if you're leading Jim's a wonderful leader in a department chair where he's at, and I guarantee he wouldn't stand up and say, North Carolina is all about Jim Sanders. No, it's all about the constituents that you build around you. And Lori was and is amazing at that specific trait. And it carries through at home. And she would at home, if you've been to her house or out to dinner, Bob gets unbelievable amounts of credit as he deserves. And she's wonderful at bringing it in ways that are, uniquely received by those individuals. And that's an undying characteristic that I've always tried to emulate that she does. Very difficult to do so, but she does it seemingly without effort.
As a fellow, she was such an incredible role model, though. I felt the whole year, I felt like she just had it all. And I wanted what she had, with a supportive husband and a daughter she was so proud of. And she just really seemed to have it all. And she made it look easy. I have no idea how she balanced it all. And I definitely think a lot of the credit goes to Bob, but such an incredible example that I could emulate to just carry it forward.
I always kind of thought the Lifetime Achievement Award should go to two people, or maybe to the whole family. Like the kids should win the Lifetime Achievement Awards as well. Well, it really is the home team too. You need to have that stable home environment to really achieve at the highest level and to be that one person. Because I think if you're struggling at home, it's hard to have the creativity and the energy to do the good work at our committees and leadership opportunities and meetings and research. So yeah, I think she has an awesome team.
That's a great point. And, it'd be great to have a future episode of really maybe just the spouses to say, how did they do it? So they can create like a roadmap of like, how to be a supportive spouse to a spine deformity surgeon in the SRS. Like that could be, I think, an hour-long podcast episode by itself. But, just to, take a pause, are there any other aspects of Lori Carol or her life that you guys feel like you want to bring up? Because I kind of went through my series of, questions, but I feel like there's something missing, but that just might be because I didn't have a close relationship with her. Is there any other viewpoint that we should, bring out?
I would bring up a little bit Lori's background. Her dad is a long distance truck driver.
Yeah.
She has come a long way from where she was growing up to going to the University of Michigan, to become an orthopedic surgeon, to becoming the first president of these societies. Lori has come a long way, and it requires an awful lot of dedication and caring and capacity to be able to do that. And Lori showed all of that in spades.
Yeah, Jim, I agree with you. I think that really ought to be highlighted, the fact that her background, she didn't come from a family that had, doctor after doctor, and, uncle was a doctor and grandmother was the first female doing that. She came a long way, and amazing to me, always handled everything with incredible grace. And she fought there were a lot of battles. She made it look easy, but trust me, it was not easy. As somebody who was kind of a shoulder to lean on and to talk to, and, talk about issues that she was having with colleagues and everybody else. It just like the rest of us, but as the ladies on this group can attest to, it is always more difficult for a young woman and for a female to do that in our world. And she handled everything with grace, but she'll be the first one to tell you it was never easy. She persevered through.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add on to that with Jay and Jim's brilliant comments there is Lori always had I had luxury of having many conversations with her, some of them more recent as she moved to Colorado. But one thing is a concept that she lived by is whoever said this whole thing called life is fair. And I mean, as in months ago, with all that she's got going on right now, she said that.
Yeah.
Whoever said that this was fair, it isn't. So get over that and figure out how you're going to bring your best game, no matter what it is. And that is sort of like her undying spirit, in my opinion. Just, it's not fair. I got it, but I'm going to go, but I'm still going to go for it. And here we go.
And what a powerful insight, because you see the 5-year-olds, they spend so much energy fighting over what's fair and not fair. But if you can have that level of acceptance of this is our reality, this is Half Dome, this is, Mount Rainier, whatever you're trying to climb, Mark and I,
Right.
like the outdoors, but
Right.
whatever you're trying to climb, you're not going to change the mountain. You just have to change yourself.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a powerful insight, and to build that team around you that's going to make your expedition a success.
Yeah, I would agree, Mark. I think that's one of the things, that sticks with me the most is Lori from the get-go, told me, because I would sit in her office a lot, just, talking. And she would be like, yeah, it's not fair. Just find your way to work around whatever obstacle is in front of you, to get what you want. I feel like in any aspect of your life, if you do that, you're going to be successful, as she has been successful in all aspects of her life.
And I guess, finally, again, knowing that this is Women's Heritage Month and this episode is starting off our series of podcasts, our podcasts are available for everyone to download. And there will be little girls, teenage girls, maybe hoping one day to be orthopedic surgeons one day. What do you think is that lasting legacy that Lori Karol has kind of paved the way for our teenage girls who are listening to this podcast? Just some final words on that.
I can start. I can remember her telling me, Amy, there's going to be so many times where you're probably going to be the only female in the room or the only girl in the room. So you can't hide. So don't try to hide. Just be great. And I think Noelle and I both remember her telling us, get up after a talk and ask intelligent questions and, and be heard. And so that personally has always, stuck with me. I don't know what Noelle has to say about that.
I was just going to add at the end, I mean, when I think about Lori Karol, she truly loved her patients. She knew her patients. She invested in her patients. She'd almost spend longer with the 17 or 18-year-olds who were graduating from the practice to talk about what their career goals were and where they're going to college or what are their future plans. So I've taken that to heart as well. And I try to invest in my patients and say, you need to go become an orthopedic surgeon. If someone expresses an interest in healthcare, I say, no, we really would rather you be an orthopedic surgeon because it's a wonderful job and it's a great job for women. And it's a wonderful way to help people really at closest to the highest level, I think. I mean, we're really involved in people's lives and people's futures. So I guess that's what I'd say to the young people listening to this. Go out and become an orthopedic surgeon because it's the best job ever.
Jason, you won't want to leave it with me since it's Women's History Month and you're trying to do all of this. But I would also say that for young women and really for anyone, it's go out, seek to be excellent and maintain your integrity as you do it, because that's what Lori's done all along. It's like you said, she's not a different person when she's at work than when she's at home, than when she's up on the stage, than when she's president and leading a society. She's the same person all the time.
I'll just say that I kind of view Lori as the Jackie Robinson of women in orthopedic surgery, and especially in spine surgery. She's handled everything with grace and has fought the battles. And to the young women who are contemplating orthopedic surgery and spine surgery and pediatric spine surgery, it's been a wonderful career for all of us. And some of the best pediatric spine surgeons I know are women, and there's no reason that you should think that that's not obtainable for you. And Lori paved the trail for you.
All right, Lorena, bring us home.
Yeah, as I think the youngest panelist here, a lot of the guiding principles that I use in my career and how I treat my patients are really a direct testament of how she has changed the field of early onset scoliosis, and a lot of the principles with bracing, as you mentioned, and pulmonary function and thoracic height, and all of these principles that are really the foundation of what I do day to day for early onset scoliosis are really her legacy and a testament to her. And that will be just a lasting contribution to the field that really has helped change the face of how we treat scoliosis. So I owe her so much. I really feel so privileged to have worked with her. And it's just hard to sum up exactly all of what she has contributed to the field. So I'm very grateful.
And I think Lori would want us, just like everyone said, I think she paying it forward and trying to help the younger generation and do all you can to move them forward as well. I think that's the best way to help women, is to promote the future as well.
Awesome. And I know I am extremely lucky to be at Scottish Rite working with 2 female spine deformity surgeons. You think about how few there are, and for them to be so concentrated at one institution, again, I think speaks to Lori Carroll's legacy at the Scottish Rite Hospital for Children. I thank you all so much for your time here. This is an amazing way to kick off our series on Women's History Month. I would encourage everyone to stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where we have interviews with some amazing female spine deformity surgeons who are members of the SRS, just to learn about their lives. Thank you all again for your time today.
Great job, Jaysson.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
No, please, thanks for coming.
Yeah, Jaysson, great idea, man. Spectacular.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
The Scoliosis Research Society is a nonprofit professional organization made up of physicians and allied health personnel. Their primary focus is on providing continuing medical education for healthcare professionals and on funding and supporting research in spinal deformities. Please visit srs.org for further information.